Hey, welcome back, Yvonne Wakefield's YouTube channel. We're going to continue reading from Babe in the Woods self-portrait. I just want to kind of refresh you if you're just tuning into this channel. This started upstairs in my living room, which is red and has a red couch. And we read the first book there, Babe in the Woods, Building a Life One Log at a Time. Then we went down to my studio. I'm an artist and I have a gallery here, where we're reading from self-portrait. So, you know, like every time we read here, there'll probably be different paintings. These were paintings I did at Cottonwood Canyon, actually, this week. So the environment shifts and it changes, but I talk about my log cabin that I built, and this is all past tense, and I also bring in stories about what's happening now. There were some short clips that were in the last one about the little, I call it the baby chainsaw. It's actually a pruning saw. The chain is either too loose or too tight, and it impedes work. Well, I was up there this weekend trying to use it again, and every 10 minutes you'd have to fix the chainsaw. So I filed another complaint with Still. Still, if you're listening, could you please contact me? Okay, so this weekend I was up there, and there are certain jobs I don't do anymore alone. I do not fall big trees by myself. I do not use the chainsaw in dangerous situations if I'm alone. So I had two friends that came, and I needed to go up on the roof to get pine needles out of cracks. And when people say, well, why didn't you use a leaf blower? Well, first of all, I don't have one. Second of all, a leaf blower wouldn't have done the job. I had to get up there with a butter knife and a whisk broom and get like under the flashings and everything and get all the pine needles out. Well, I'm a little bit older than when I used to do that all by myself, and I have two titanium hips, and I'm still recovering from a broken toe, so my balance is a little bit off. So I brought up my kayak vest, and I got some of the rope I use for logging underneath the cabin, and I weaved it between my vest, and one of my friends stood in the dormer holding on to me in the vest while I was up on the pitched roof. So Arturo's going to put some of those pictures up for you to see. Another thing I just want to mention, just this week, just a couple of days ago, this magazine came out, Backwoods Home Magazine, and I wrote an article in here about what it's like to maintain a log cabin. So if you get a chance, it's actually more pages than that. Get a chance to read it. It's Backwoods Home Magazine, Practical Ideas for Self-Reliant Living. In the same week, this magazine came out from American Lifestyle. They did a story on me and the log cabin and my artwork. And what was interesting is this is a piece of ceramic that I do. It's and it's pit-fired ceramics. I've gotten several requests already from all over the United States of wanting to buy these pieces. Yeah, some are for sale still, but man, the shipping costs more than the piece. So anyway, if you get a chance to read American Lifestyles or Backwoods Homes, you'll get to see a little bit more. Okay, so tonight we are going to go into chapters 18 and 19. I just need to kind of recap what we did before. 16 and 17. 16 was about, it's called Wrapping It Up. I ate some venison as a form of catharsis after I killed a bear. And 17, Buster, was about my brother's Belgian draft horse that was always running around with me. So let's get right into it. Babe in the Woods, Men, chapter 18. And you all remember Don Paulson. He's one of the neighbors that is down below the mountain, and he always comes up, especially if he knows it's 5 o'clock and I'm going to take a bath or something. I got a rubber and all night. Don Paulson leans into me and holds out a foil packet in his ranch-roughed hand to prove it. He'd ridden Maggie all the way to see if I needed any help at an hour when he knew I would be winding down for the day. I didn't want to seem rude or anything, so I invited him inside to show off my recent fix, a piece of chink that had fallen out above the kitchen sink. As I point to the clear silicone bead rimming the repair, Don nails me. See, He palms the Cracker Jack-sized prize he is eager to share, the other hand pinning my shoulder to the wall. Even with youth on my side, I can't seem to leverage myself out of this predicament with an old man. I try reasoning. What about Orinda? That's his wife. She's at her sister's for the night. Aside, she could give me lovin' a long time ago. I can see why. That sluice-stained liver-lipped pucker is enough to make anyone want to take a long vacation. Don's brushy jowls are so close I can chew the smell of snooze on his breath as I try to figure out how to protect myself from this rogue neighbor. The nearest weapons are out of reach. The fire poker hangs behind the stove, the buck knife by the sink. With only fragile wits for defense, I fake a sneeze. Don's reflective move to wipe spittle from his cheek allows me to jerk free and lunge for the poker. You better go, I jab the forked prong in his direction. Don stands his ground despite a stave of forged rebar between us. But I need my lovin' as much as you, he pleads, his eyes dewy as his mule. Now, I thrust the poker closer to his belt buckle, or I'm telling Orinda and the whole town too. This does the trick, and he rides away on Maggie, who is less of an ass than he is. For reasons it will take me a while to register, sometimes I pique interest in people I meet, mostly men, because they are the ones that handle my transactions in the hardware store aisles or in lumber yards. During these exchanges, some, usually the older ones, give me a deep, twinkly, crow-eyed look that holds fatherly concern and forthrightly tell me why I should buy the more expensive galvanized nails. More often than not, the younger ones give me cocky BS. Maybe because they are unsettled by a young woman wearing cutoffs and a tank top under an open flannel shirt rather than a dress. Or maybe their masculinity is threatened because I know how to use what I buy and they are not accustomed to a little woman who can wield tools wearing whatever. Remember, I'm 20 years old when I'm writing about this. Although I never divulge my exact location, sometimes people trail stories that end at the cabin. One early evening, I was chopping firewood when a man showed up offering his unsolicited services. Heard your camshaft needed work, said that recent divorcee who drove up with beer on his breath in a pickup bright as the drained Hams cans I'd later find on the road. Before his arrival, I didn't even know my truck had a camshaft. Like others, I sent this uninvited visitor back down the mountain on a road as dicey and remote as I practiced being. Yarns spinning around these parts about a young woman alone in a log cabin at the end of a wilderness road were tangled in fact and fiction. Shooting the bear inflamed curiosities, and that led to more uninvited visitors. Until the bear story simmered down, I kept a new keyed master padlock on the green gate. I slid one note in the screen door of the judge's downtown house. Remember, he's like my only other neighbor up there. I put two other notes, one in an unstamped envelope addressed to my brother and sister, and one in a stamped envelope addressed to the hybrid-loving ranchers inside the county mailbox my siblings and I share. Each penned half-slip paper read, "Green gate key under biggest gray rock left of closest pine tree." This is about as much home security as I can score around here. On my way back from town errands, I stopped to chat with Orinda. I pull a plaid cotton shirt over my tank top before knocking. When the door opens, I'm met with a stare as icy as the bottom shelf in the chest freezer behind my neighbor. She is too busy to talk, she declares, and the screen door bangs shut behind her. No one on this mountain is ever too busy to talk. On the contrary, talking with neighbors is the only thing that keeps us from talking to ourselves. Even Rhonda looks like she doesn't want to crack open the door enough to the entry in the mudroom when I stop at her house to ask if she knows what's going on with Orinda. Well, Rhonda, remember, she's the mother of the Mormon family who's always helping me out. Well, Rhonda drowns out that first word long enough to make me feel ashamed of something I must be responsible for, even though standing before my closest neighbor, I'm oblivious to what it might be. Come in. If you don't know already, I'll tell you. The door slides shut behind us. Rhonda leans against the wall directly beneath the haloed portrait of the heavenly prophet. The print and the woman look down upon me as Rhonda unravels a web of stories woven since the night Don Paulson played Rube Goldberg with a bucket and a bell. Stories of how I invited a man to stay the night spread as fast as words about uninvited relationships with bears. This scuttlebutt has snowballed into stories about how I entertain men at night. That's the story Rhonda told me. Jesus! Just be careful of my brother's horse. He charges you at the rosehip gate, I warned Rhonda as I leave her house that afternoon. It's time to clean up part of my reputation as a young female recluse, and that includes prostitution. She said she'd go to Orinda's later that day to extend a luncheon invitation, which includes how to find the key hiding rock. I need to clear up any illusions that what I do on the mountain is not done under a red light. At noon, 3 days after extending an olive branch guised as a lunch invite, Rhonda parks the family pickup at the turnaround below the cabin. She must have been able to convince Orinda that I am not a little lady of the night because she gets out of the passenger side. They are both wearing below-the-knee length dresses. I'm wearing clean chinos and a white Oxford shirt with a pale orange stain that I hope neither woman will notice. We sit at the white cloth maple dinette to eat. Luncheon is spaghetti, salad, and garlic bread. Dessert is Nabisco Nilla wafers topped with peanut butter and a banana slice. With only a wood stove and a small ice chest, that's about as gourmet as it gets around here. Everything is served on my mother's gold-gilded china to make the mundane appear as refined as I would like to appear. Rhonda points to her waist. On a diet, she says, when I offer her more spaghetti before her first serving is finished. Had a big breakfast, claims Orinda, who also passes on seconds. Dessert is served on the porch step. Rhonda nibbles a cookie, then pulls out a plastic bag from her purse and begins darning a sock. Orinda seems to have warmed a bit after seeing how I live, and the three of us engage in small talk. Want to see what I've been working on? I asked the two ladies. Shouldering the rifle, I feel protective as we walk down to the building site. Remember, I started to build a little log studio below the log cabin, which is pretty much the premise of this book. You shouldn't be working this hard. You're a woman after all. When my neighbors leave, there are lots of dirty dishes and leftovers I can't bury. As the china air dries, I curl in the hammock and do something rare. Relax. And read in the midday. Solitude, that's the book by May Sarton I've been reading on a few chapters before. Solitude sails out of my hand just as I'm dozing off with the page-bound May Sarton on my chest. The book lands open-faced above the bottom step. Buster nuzzles. Begrudgingly, I unfold out of the hammock, dust off the hardback, and face the horse. For the first time, does not give me a Dennis the Menace stare, but gives me sugar eyes, something I've never seen in that bull-headed skull. I retreat inside and return, leftovers in hand. Buster lips the wafers that glue to his apple-sized molars. Satiated, he snorts a nostril sigh, turns, and shuffles away. I get back in that hammock, exchange solitude for a cold bowl of spaghetti. Okay, so we're going to go right into the next chapter. It's chapter 19. It's called The Big Pour. And if you've been following along on this book, I made a small log cabin studio that I could build myself, mostly, below the main log cabin. And because the bears were so bad that summer, I decided I had to make a bear-proof cellar. So I hand dug I think it was a 14-foot square hole. I got to go measure that again. 6 feet down, and I was going to pour a solid cement cellar, but that was something I couldn't do alone. So I enlisted the guy who helped me build my cabin in the first place, Jim. And this is about making the foundation. And remember, there's no power tools. This is before cell phones or anything. We had a chainsaw and ended up renting, which you'll find out, a gas powered generator to churn the cement. Since shooting the bear, I'd not encountered or been bothered by one. Building a bear-proof enclosure no longer seems driven by necessity. But I stockpiled 3 truckloads of 94-pound Portland cement sacks covered with bisqueen. Neighboring yards of 3/4 ag and washed sand also waited to be mixed and poured into footings and walls. I had absolutely no inkling how to configure. If it wasn't mixed before winter and spring soaked in, it would be like throwing away good money. Penny pinching had gotten me this far, so I set out to finish what I started. Constructing and pouring footings I could do on my own, but building and filling forms tall as me was beyond my reach. I scraped my savings to pay Jim for the skills and muscles I lacked. I also knew he had another job building a mansion-styled log cabin for those high-bred driving ranchers half a mile below my bear-proof cellar site, and he was being paid a good living wage by people who provided power tools to build by code. So I was greatly appreciative when he said he would come and spare some time to work for me. It takes us nearly 2 days of scraping lone boards together to reconstruct the footing forms I made, spaced 12 inches apart and stabilized with rebar spikes. Though we haven't collaborated together on anything major since the cabin, cobbling silliness into the serious mix of measuring and pounding is proof we haven't rusted out our connection. Midway into the second day, I hand Jim a shovel. Let's pretend they are dugout canoes, I say, pointing to the footings we've nailed together from scrap wood. I wedge inside one of the 4 forms that we will use to set concrete, and not my silly ass. Jim sits atop another, his legs bent and draping over the sides of 1x4s, hammered to the lengths of boa constrictor coffins. Using my shovel like I J-stroke wide so as not to collide starboard with Jim, who, playing along, is also paddling in Pine Needle Rapids. By the time we quit splashing around in earthbound wakes and begin to use those shovels rightfully again, this impromptu landlocked paddle has cost me $5. Well worth the added expenditure, I reason, because playfulness seasons the monotony of manual labor. There is no fooling around when it comes to fill those forms. By the end of the second day, boards that only hours before floated freely along with our imaginations are topped off with cement, hoed creamy. They haven't begun to set yet when Don Paulson shows up, amnesia-like, about the night he packed up a rubber. Got a spit in him, he says, while wedging a juicy plug in his cheek. He leans over the footing. I'm smoothing, finishing with a trowel for good luck. Fresh sluice coils out between his teeth, and a stream lands sickly in the wet cement. Here you go. Don holds out his tobacco tin, which I refuse out of past experience. Instead, I patootie my piece of pink bazooka gum, by now as flavorful as a shoe sole. Jim refuses to spit. 2 days later, the footings are cured, and I whack off the form boards, then pull out nails and scrape away dried cement. These are reused for wall forms, which takes Jim and me 4 full days to build. It takes another 2 days to wire together a framework of rebar. These are lowered into and anchored to the footings. The time Jim budgets to work with me more than doubles. I dip deeper into my savings, financing a bear-proof cellar and investment in my future on this mountain, I hope. I'm halfway to the gravel pit for another yard of washed sand when I realize my wallet is on the window sill in the cabin instead of my back pocket. I always paid my bills in full and was about to turn back, but remembered my hidden booty. One time when I was settling my tab with Emery, remember Emery's the cantankerous baker who owns a restaurant, who was always really nice to me. One time when I was settling my tab with Emery, he gave me some advice while handing back wilted change. I know fishermen and loggers who keep money in their boots for emergencies. I wondered why Emery would tell me this, as his occupation kept him tied to a cash register from dawn to dusk. But after pocketing dollar bills and silver change, I went to the bank and withdrew a $100 bill. After folding it in half and slipping it under the insole of my work boot, I forgot about it until this financial crunch. My loaded truck idles next to Janet's booth. Remember Janet? She's the one who runs the gravel pit where I gave her a rose that I picked from a neighbor. I actually stole it from a neighbor. I wasn't really a neighbor. It was a house on the side. So my loaded truck idles next to Janet's booth while she waits for payment. I hoist my foot onto the seat, unstirring the upper eyelets, pull off my left boot, and uncover a treasure trove of pulverized grime. On to the right boot. Beneath the leather insole, pasted down by gravity and sweat, I discover my $100 bill, worn in half at the crease and plain useless now. With the promise of returning soon, I drive to the bank, loaded down with unpaid sand, sad money, and a sadder story, which I present to the bank teller. After some behind-the-counter conferences with higher up, the teller returns and tells me that if the pieces meet and the entire bill is intact, she can exchange the damaged bill for an unspoiled one. You okay, Henry? Little Henry. Little Henry's getting old. As she holds the halves in the light, I hold my breath. She aligns the ends on the counter like two pieces of a puzzle mating. On the other side of the counter, I exhale, relieved when she hands me a crisp new $100 bill that I immediately exchange for 520s. Back at the gravel yard, Janet puts one in her cash box before handing me change and a receipt. Originally, I planned to mix all the cement in a wheelbarrow. According to Jim, we would not. You're a damn fool if you think we can mix it all by hand, he said, and proceeded to point out the labor and time-saving benefits of powering up a gas generator to turn the mixer, as well as running a pump rather than hauling up water from the creek, bucket by bucket, which I'd been doing to mix all the other cement, including the mortar in the cabin. Paying Jim to help me build a foundation was necessary, but renting a generator and mixer to do work we could manage between us seemed an exorbitant and unnecessary drain of my limited financial resources. At this age, I banked more bullheaded determination than I did discretionary income. Thankfully, the treasure buried in my boot will cover this unplanned rental equipment. The generator drones, burrs, and coughs and chokes out dead when it needs gas. The hose is left running down the slope when not in use. We take turns shoveling cement, sand, and ag into the mixer. Whoever isn't tending mixing cement is loading it into a wheelbarrow and balancing it downhill. Twice, a rock twists my grip, and I end up on the ground with a wet load. Only myself worth savaging. The first day, we fill 2 wall forms. After Jim leaves, I hose off the tools, the mixer, and refuel the generator so everything is ready in the morning. The next day, we work again from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Early that afternoon, Don Paulson shows up, again offering more superstition rather than a hand. Gotta put something in those walls so they remember who built them, he says as I shovel cement into one form. Before Don arrived, I had no idea cement walls held memories, but follow suit and drop in a chewing gum wrapper next to Don's tobacco tin. Jim adds a pine cone, and we cement over our offerings. Late that afternoon, Jim tows away a tired cement mixer and an overheated generator. Motorized equipment I would have gladly sacrificed, a fresh $100 bill to create walls with a consciousness. All right, well, this ends that little chapter. Building that foundation was a big task, and it's the only time I've used motorized equipment to this point up at the cabin. When I was building the cabin, it was, again, it's only with a chainsaw. This was first gas-powered tool up on the mountain. So if you've enjoyed this, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave a review if you want. Kay Webster has narrated all 3 of these books on audio, and does a fantastic job if you want a professional voice, not my voice. And the books are available wherever books are sold. It's our first day of fall here. I was out playing golf this afternoon, and we got rain, and it's raining now. Last time we filmed, it was 90 degrees. And the boys are wearing their, if I get up, well, this mess up the shot. The boys, in honor of, it's not the first day of fall yet, but the boys put on their little, come here, their little fall scarves today. And little Henry, he's 15 now, and his little legs are kind of splaying out, so I'm having to carry him more than usual. But anyway, hope you've enjoyed this reading, and we'll see you next time. It's not so hot now, but remember, stay hydrated with your beverage of choice. Bye-bye. See you next week.